on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. The show contains graphic language and depictions of violence. It may not be suitable for all audiences.
We say fuck a lot.
Hi, welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
This is episode 95.
Oh my God, I'm so pumped up today.
You're pumping up the jam over there.
Yeah, pump up the jam, pump it up, get this party started.
Dylan is the missing member of the Technotronics or whatever the band was, the group.
He don't want the... Okay, let's go. That's all I got.
Rhythm is a dancer, Dylan.
Yeah. Oh, don't you even take me down that road.
Get at it, sir.
This will go into places you don't even understand.
He has moves, y'all.
I'm a very proficient car seat dancer, am I not?
You are.
I am, right?
But between your car dancing and my car karaoke,
yeah,
we are definitely a family of entertainers.
This is how we get the road trips. That's how we get them done, y'all.
This is why our kids hate us.
They're like, what the fuck's wrong with y'all? They don't say that, but it's on their face.
Yeah. No, I think they say it under their breath.
You can say it. I see you thinking it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In true crime news, have you heard of Crystal Rogers? She was a Kentucky mom who went missing about 5 years ago.
I haven't seen this one.
Okay, well, Crystal Rogers is a Kentucky mother of 5 who went missing from her boyfriend's family farm on July 3rd, 2015. And the FBI has taken over the investigation. This week, they deployed more than 150 agents to Kentucky to investigate her disappearance.
Oh, wow. Sounds like they're not playing around.
They had 9 search warrants, and they conducted more than 50 interviews in Bardstown as part of the search for the missing woman.
Wow.
Now, when she went missing, most people were enjoying the 4th of July celebrations that weekend. So her family was kind of left wondering her whereabouts. This investigation's been going on for like 5 years. And of course, her family is still seeking answers.
I wonder what the new evidence is that's made them turn out in force like that 5 years later.
At the time of her disappearance, her boyfriend, his name is Brooks Houck, he said that the couple had gone to bed together, but when he woke up, she was gone. And they had 1 son together.
You know, I never believed that is typically the man, you know, or we argued and she left walking guy, or I went to sleep and woke up and she's gone. That's just so not probable.
Well, he was identified as a main suspect in her case, and his brother was fired from the local police department after being accused of interfering with the investigation.
Oh, okay.
Now, he's never been charged with a crime, though his home was searched as well this week. And 1 year after her disappearance, her dad was fatally shot while hunting with his son and grandson.
Well, damn, it sounds like tragedy follows this family.
I was going to say, they've had a lot of tragedy over the last few years. Now, there is a website called crystalrogerstaskforce.com if you want to go check that out. There's a $25,000 reward if there's any information leading to the current whereabouts of Crystal Rogers.
Well, I have to say, I wish I had the information they were seeking, because I could use that $25,000.
Well, yeah, I would like to be able to reconnect this woman with her family.
Well, yeah, and I would also like to help solve the crime.
Sure, Dylan.
It's not just the money, y'all.
Nice save.
Yeah,
But, being in Kentucky, I mean, that's part of Appalachia, so I thought I'd share that this week in True Crime News.
Yeah, I don't have any exciting breaking news myself. Of course, you know, I usually dig something out from 2015, and you're like, that's old, nobody cares. But it's new to me.
Okay, Dylan.
It's like a pair of shoes from the Goodwill.
They're new to you?
New to me. Yeah, just like that.
Okay. Episode 95. We are plugging along.
Oh my gosh, we're getting so close.
And I have discovered a very interesting case for today.
Oh, yeah, you've been digging around in the vault.
We're going to go back in time a little bit. We've got a moonshine murder to discuss.
Oh, I bet there's a lot of that in this region and area because that's been going on here for a very long time.
Well, let's get into it, Dylan. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Buckle up.
I'm in my high chair.
You can't be drinking and driving in your seat over
I got
there,
my booster
okay?
seat. Please let me drink during this episode.
The practice of distilling and making spirits in southern Appalachia dates back hundreds of years. With an influx of Scotch-Irish settlers into the area during the 17th and 18th centuries, their ancient methods and techniques of making liquor came along with them. Whiskey production was not only an economic vehicle for society, but also one that influenced politics and culture. Once in America, these early pioneers molded their distilling ways to fit the new crop they discovered, corn, which was a plentiful ingredient grown by Native Americans and quickly adapted by the newcomers. Making liquor was a natural way of life for these settlers. During the 18th and 19th century, several attempts by the U.S. government to tax liquor spurred protest and, in some situations, violence. Congress brought about a $2 tax on liquor, which was an enormous jump from the 20 cents taxed in previous years. Distillers immediately became outlaws, with federal revenuers looking to collect.
Well, yeah, it sounds like they raised it to the point where they thought someone, couldn't afford, tax them out of production, if you will. That's like with marijuana. They never outright made it illegal. In the first place, they made like you had to go, to the post office or whatever with the product in your hand to get a stamp, a tax stamp. And then they just never made the tax stamps. Those fucking conniving assholes.
Well, I'm going to say I have feelings about this episode as we get into this, and you'll probably know when I get a little excitable. I'll raise my voice and I'll start talking with my hands.
Talking about her
Not
heritage.
that our listeners can see me talking with my hands, but I'm a hand talker, so the whole time I'm doing my little hand puppets while I'm reading. So.
They can feel it when you get animated.
Okay, so I may skip around a little bit with the story, so bear with me. By 1876, the federal government had caught wind of a man named Lewis Redmond's illegal distilling activity, and they issued an arrest warrant. During this time, he began making home deliveries of bootlegged liquor, and federal revenue officers obtained an arrest warrant for Lewis Redmond. 24-year-old U.S. Deputy Marshal Alfred Duckworth was sent to serve the warrant. Duckworth met Redmond and his future brother-in-law, Amos Ladd, driving a wagon load of the illegal booze across the Lower Creek Ford of Walnut Hollow Road in the East Fork section of Transylvania County, North Carolina, near Dark Waters, South Carolina. Duckworth ordered the men to exit their wagon at gunpoint, then read the details of the arrest warrant. After Duckworth read the warrant, Lewis Redmond told him, "All right, put up your pistol, Alf. I will go along with you." As Duckworth lowered his weapon, Redmond produced a small derringer and from point-blank range gunned the officer down with a bullet that entered his throat and carried with it a collar button.
Oh, my God.
As Redmond fled, Duckworth staggered to the ford and bent over for a drink, but the water leaked out through the bullet hole in his throat, and the federal officer died shortly thereafter.
My God, so it hit the button and took it into his throat? That's crazy.
Lewis Redmond killed the official and was dubbed King of the Moonshiners, and compared to outlaws like Jesse James, even dubbed a Robin Hood of sorts. He fled to Pickens County, South Carolina, where he hid out for 3 years, earning quite a reputation. Now, the history of Redmond was a product of his time. The whole story here, it's so befitting of this period. And as Redmond became a folk hero to the poor and middle class who saw him as reflecting hopes, dreams, and fears, he was an outlaw opposing the overreach of the federal government, which is still a sentiment that resonates with many mountain people. You've got to realize this was the Reconstruction South when the people had nothing, especially the people of the Mountain South. They had lost men in the war from 12 years old up to 80 years old. People had nothing to begin with, and then after the war, they had even less. So people had no money, no men to work the farms, and speculators began moving in and buying up the land. Many people said, bootleg or perish.
Yeah, I think that's a true sign of how maybe prevalent it was in this area, for instantly this guy to kind of get this notoriety and kind of have the backing of people from the community.
Now, many people turned to moonshine as a means of survival. People needed money to buy food, pay their taxes. Lewis provided a way for poor mountain farmers to pay their taxes. He would go pay property taxes for people, and that made him a hero. He fed the widows who'd lost their husbands and sons, thus earning him the nickname Robin Hood. The shooting of the officer began a violent and unlikely career during which Redmond became a national hero, a species of Robin Hood for those who opposed federal revenue laws governing the manufacturing of whiskey. Moonshiners felt it was their right to make moonshine. It was their right, it was their property, their corn, and they had every right to make moonshine. That was what they thought. And Lewis Redmond had a moonshine road where he was running liquor up from South Carolina into North Carolina and then back down into North Georgia. It was a different time and easy to see how he sort of became this folk hero.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have these times, it's desperate times, and not easy for anybody, and they kind of have a point. I mean, I hate that officer was killed. That's horrible, but it is, who's to say I can't distill this down into spirits, and it had been done for generations, literal generations, recipes handed down, the way to do it, and all in tradition. And so, yeah, who are you to tell me I can't do this?
And the thing is, Duckworth was a childhood friend of Lewis Redmond. The arrest warrant he pulled out of his pocket wasn't even for Redmond, it was a bluff. Duckworth wanted to walk Redmond at gunpoint into town for everyone to see, and Redmond acted quickly, and he goes from the typical mountain moonshiner to a cold-blooded murderer.
See, I often wonder in these situations when you have people who are, involved in whatever, a deemed criminal, but then they turn around and they do help neighbors, they pay people's bills. Always wonder if it's out of the good kindness of their heart, or if they are trying to drum up, some positive sentiment or get support from the community. Like Escobar did it, to a whole region. I always wonder if it's out of the goodness of their heart, or if they know in the end that, people will hide them out and that kind of thing.
So I've served you the steak. Let's get into the salad and potatoes. Are you ready? Let's talk a little bit about Lewis Redmond's background.
Okay, I love taters.
Okay, Lewis Redmond was born in the mid-1850s in the Maple Springs section of present-day Swain County, North Carolina. His family was residing in the Middle Fork community of Transylvania County, which is outside modern-day Brevard, sort of between Brevard and Hendersonville, by 1856, at which time he was 2 years old. Little is known about his childhood other than he was a boy who grew up laboring away on his father's farm, cultivating vegetables and other crops. Lewis was too young to enlist in the Confederate Army, but his older brothers were members of the famous Thomas Legion. He was given the honorary nickname Major as a boy while hanging out around a Confederate Army camp during the Civil War. Now, the name seemed appropriate because years later, Redmond would be known as a natural leader who was capable of organizing large groups of men. Now, during this time, guerrilla warfare broke out in the mountains. Events like the Shelton Laurel Massacre in Madison County, North Carolina, where Confederates slaughtered 13 people, including a 12-year-old boy who was suspected of treason. So regionally, mountain people were kind of scrambling to protect themselves against vigilantes, bushwhackers, and raiding troops. It was an incredibly violent time in our Western North Carolina history, and likely shaped many of Redmond's points of view.
Hey y'all, Meg here, the host of a brand new podcast called Dreadfully Curious, a Wicked Podcast. We cover everything from true crime and disappearances to vampire panics and haunted hotels. So what are you waiting for? Come be part of the Dreadful family. All our episodes are available for download on Spotify and Buzzsprout, and look for Dreadfully Curious, a Wicked Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and follow us on Twitter at DreadfulPod2020, where you can get memes, case-specific photos, and all the behind-the-scenes goodies that you could ever want. I can't wait to see you there, and until then, make sure you stay weird, wild, and wicked, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!
Well, yeah, wow, that sounds like a very dangerous time to, be here in this region. I mean, just anywhere you go, someone's trying to take what little you have or just, outright kill you for whatever reason.
Well, and again, you've got Mostly women at home with children. The men folk have all gone off to fight in this war. You're unprotected. You're trying to feed your family. The farming work, all of that is left on the women and the children. And then they've got their own, and I say their own, quote unquote, Confederate soldiers who are from their, supposedly from their town and from their area, who are basically coming into their homes, raping the women, abusing them, stealing whatever they can. So it was like no one was safe.
It never stops.
It was a really just dangerous time.
I'm amazed how quickly, and we talked about this the other day, we're just like sophisticated animals. I mean, mankind or humankind, whatever you want to say. I mean, really just societal construct we have right now, or modern civilization, is only what, a couple hundred years old? I mean, the idea of it, and even then, all along the way, there was always some group of people being brutalized or abused by the majority. And it's just how quickly we devolve in situations. And it would happen now. I have no doubt about it. Like Mad Max would exist a year or two out of the complete breakdown of society and supply lines and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Or scenes from like The Walking Dead.
Oh, totally.
Where you've got cannibals and...
Well, they quickly...
I mean, I just feel like that's not so far-fetched.
No, and quickly they're not, in The Walking Dead, just right quick, they're not fighting the zombies aren't the biggest threat, it's other groups of people,
Well, I think anyone who reads news comments on social media can see that that's not too far off.
Oh, my God.
That our society would quickly devolve into this lawless, anarchist, murderous, just fucking cesspool of crime and
scary.
Violence. Yeah.
And so in this time, you have these poor women, and the only reason I say poor is because they're left holding the bag, and the very young left, and these are already harsh times. I think that's one thing you have to point out. These are already harsh times, just in the best of times.
Well,
just
especially here in the mountains,
just to get through the day, you got to work so hard and scratch out just a meager existence just to get fed every day and wake up the next day.
Well, and I'm not trying to get into a history lesson here, and I don't at me, folks, but just a different point of view, if you will, is I think a lot of people have this idea that the South or Confederates were supporting, like, this plantation and whatever.
This huge system.
I mean, the majority of the people who were duped, let's face it, into fighting for the South.
It's no different than nowadays.
We're just poor dirt farmers trying to make a living. And I think a lot of people also don't realize that you were drafted. And if you didn't go along with it,
they would hunt you down.
Yeah, they would.
In our episode about who shot the sheriff, one of the stories is a sheriff who was conscripted to go and find deserters and people who were avoiding this very draft.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's a much more complicated history than people want to give credit to it, or they want to kind of whitewash over it.
Well, they do. It's no different than what's happening nowadays. It just happened. It's just in different ways. You have the 1% who have this goal in mind, and the rest of us are left holding the bag, and we're the ones who go die for that cause.
Fortunate Son.
Yes, sir.
CCR
it's
wrote
no different.
a fucking generational anthem about it.
It's no different.
So here you've got these women left holding the bag, as you said. And so, of course, Lewis Redmond, being a young boy at this time, I mean, he's seeing all of this violence. He's probably watching his own family farm being raided.
Well, when you see these soldiers or groups or whoever, they still, especially as a child, in your mind, or you're out here in the middle, in these limited kind of closed off communities, that's authority. That's still authority that comes in and destroys your neighbor's farm, or kills your neighbor, or comes in and brutalizes your family. That's in your eyes, that's authority. That's just authority coming and attacking you.
Well, and he's already seeing this brutality everywhere, and he's probably associating that in his young mind with this is what the federal government does.
Even if it's not sanctioned by the federal government, and these are rogue groups, even, it doesn't matter. In his viewpoint, that is the government's doing this to me and my people.
Well, after the war, Governor Zebulon Vance chastised government taxation of liquor and called them red-legged grasshoppers.
Oh, what? Wow.
And Governor Zebulon Vance, I mean, he's a pretty well-known governor in North Carolina. There's a big monument.
I was going to say, is that the monument for him?
And he said this.
They covered that monument up.
Now, this is what he said about those red-legged grasshoppers, and I quote, "This fella, he eats up every green thing God gave to man, and he only serves the universal dissolution. The time has come when an honest man can't take an honest drink without a gang of revenue officers after him."
Well, I mean, you have all this time. I'm sure there's a long period of time before this when people because the entire time before they even came over to America, people have been distilling their own spirits. In medieval times, people drank ale because it was safer than drinking the water. So, I mean, these are commonplace things that have been around for hundreds of years. And then all of a sudden, the government's like, oh, we're going to tax that. Oh, you got to go through us, or you got to jump through these hoops. And then when they go from 20 cents to $2, that's a huge leap. I mean, it's just... Yeah, how could you not view it as you're trying to, who are you to tell me that?
Us Scotch-Irish people just want to drink our whiskey and do some river dance, okay? We just want to do a little jig.
Oh.
And feel good, right?
Yeah, Scotch-Irish, huh? I don't know what I'm just some kind of trash that snuck onto the boat from over that way. I don't know what I am.
You're English, honey.
You think I'm English? My people might have come from the Vikings.
No, I talked to your uncle. He said you were English.
God damn it, Lee. You and your damn history lessons.
Tutored by a man named Walsh Galloway and his father, Lewis Redmond was an experienced distiller of moonshine by the time he was 21. Redmond worked all day on his father's farm and made moonshine all night long.
All night long.
All night, all night long.
All night, yeah.
Yeah. So he claimed in a newspaper interview that he was so tired, he had often fall asleep plowing cornfields and would only wake up when his horse had stopped at the end of a row.
Well, that's pretty damn tired.
Described as a ladies' man who was part Indian, having hawk-like eyes and raven black hair.
Whoa, damn.
And also a superb specimen of manhood, being 6 foot tall, stoutly built, very strong, and active as a cat.
Oh, wow.
He was quite willing to play the romantic hero role in which he was cast.
Oh, my God. I want to date this guy.
I know, right?
He sounds pretty hot.
Totally. Seen as a hero, fellow distillers were eager to ride with the man who was fighting the revenue officers and winning. Redmond also felt more of a personal vendetta than just, they're trying to tax my liquor. In the mid-1870s, revenuers captured his father, Old Man Redmond, and later a few accomplices at church. Now, his father was taken to Asheville, North Carolina, and held there. His mother became ill with worry and died a few days after her husband's arrest.
That was probably tuberculosis.
The exposure and journey to Asheville made Redmond's father sick. He died a few weeks after his arrest, and many said it was due to Old Man Redmond's poor treatment that he died.
Well, very well could be.
So Lewis Redmond was left with a homestead, siblings to feed, and felt in some way the revenuers were responsible for the deaths of his parents. A vengeance was born. It was an event that changed his life, basically.
Well, yeah, I think oftentimes these revolutionary people throughout history typically have a personal stake, and then they kind of latch on to a cause. But that's where that passion and that fire and never giving up, I think, a lot of times comes from their personal stake. You know, they've been affected like that.
With his arrest, his parents' death, the lines were drawn and the stage set for a high country whiskey war.
Oh, shit. I want to go to the whiskey war.
In January of 1877, Redmond and his partner Amos Ladd were tricked at a cabin near Liberty, South Carolina. Now, this is after he is shot Duckworth. They were trying to make a delivery, and while they were asleep with their boots off, they were swarmed by officers set on arresting the pair.
That must be a cowardly way to approach a man when he's got his boots on.
Exactly.
How dare you? I'm in here in my damn breeches down and just relaxing by the fire.
I got my boots off.
I got my damn boots off.
Whose bed have your boots been under, sir?
Oh, not under my bed.
The fox-like Redmond escaped almost immediately.
Man, he must have been. This is what they're describing as an athletic dude, a naturally athletic dude. But I love it. He's like, he swoops down from the trees.
I watched
and then
a documentary where people were describing him like his nickname was a Black Panther.
Oh,
because he was just like slipping around like a cat.
Oh my God! I bet the damn hoop skirts was all up above their heads and stuff.
Oh, my bustle's getting a little hot, sir.
Ooh, is it me or are you fox-like?
Is that my red petticoat crinkling?
Here comes the panther.
I do declare. Angry that he had been tricked, not so much that they got his whiskey, but he was really pissed off that they took his money and his horses. He showered the officers with gunfire until they let his partner Ladd go. And a week later, a very furious Redmond invaded one of the same officers' homes. The officer told Redmond he had deposited the money at a bank in Greenville, South Carolina. So Redmond told him to write a check, and he would accompany the marshal's abducted wife and take 2 of his best horses, and they would go riding down to Greenville to get his damn money.
Damn, he wasn't playing around, was he?
After spending some time talking to the wife, who explained they were also in financial straits, they didn't have money for food, they had a few kids, and things just hadn't gone well for them, Redmond ordered her to keep some of the money.
She talked him down just a little bit.
He soon returned the wife and one of the horses along with a portion of the money, but then rode off on the other horse and then stopped in town at a local bar to buy a round of drinks. Again, a Robin Hood hero.
I bet all she did was talk to the panther-like Redmond. Wow, that's a long ride down to Greenville and back.
She was
on
like,
horses.
She was like, "Sir, I love your beard. the way your beard hangs down to the center of your chest, sir.
And your panther-like movements.
Woo!
Ooh, Lord, it's like I need a mint julep.
I do, yeah.
Oh.
I would love to have a mint julep right now.
Ooh.
Around 30 men rode with Redmond's various gangs through the years. They were pursued.
Persevered? Or were they pursued?
They were pursued, okay?
Leave that in.
With a hail of bullets raining down.
Oh, you should sing for like a Tarantino movie.
By dozens of revenue officers through the Blue Ridge to little avail, even though there was a $1,000 reward posted for Redmond's arrest. As one of his specialties, again, was raiding the homes of the officers who pursued him. This probably deterred a few arrests.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like psychological warfare. No, I mean, really, they're like, once the word gets around that he's done this a time or two, and sounds like he got away with it, really, and then, yeah, that's going to make you think twice if you're part of a posse,
He's got that cat-scratch fever.
Yeah, he's going to come down there and take your wife and 2 of your best horses and ride all the way down to Greenville, and you come back, and they've come to some kind of understanding.
He rode your wife to Greenville and then gave her some money?
Yeah, left her with money. He left money on the coffee table. Hello. And then all she can talk about is panthers and foxes and eagles swooping down and going up under her dress afterwards.
I feel like this is a porno that needs to be made.
Oh, my God.
We should look up, is there like a Revolutionary War-themed porn?
Big
Civil War porn?
Yeah, we're going to call it Big Daddy Redmond.
Redmond had a romance going on with Amos Ladd's sister, like during this time. Her name was Adeline, and she was a teenager. Now, they were both very young. I mean, he was only in his early 20s, but she was much younger. Of course, that was more acceptable. The child bride was acceptable back then.
Well, that's like midlife, early 20s back then.
Well, at one point, some officers raided the Ladd cabin. The officers knocked on the door, and a man who opened was shot and killed by the officers. His mother grabbed him and held him while he died. The officers thought for sure they had Lewis Redmond, but it turned out to be his best friend, his partner, Amos Ladd.
Yeah, because that's whose house they came to and knocked on the door.
Amos Ladd's mother and sister, who were witnesses and spoke to the killing, said the unarmed man was shot in his doorway without warning, fueling even more hatred among Redmond. He was pissed. The officers would later testify in court, saying Ladd had first shot and his gun had misfired.
Oh, imagine that.
And killed him.
Yeah, and there's a problem when you give your rights away. These no-knock searches nowadays. We had an American citizen killed not very long ago, this same fashion. Bullshit.
The jury was out for 35 minutes and came back with a not guilty verdict.
Well, I'm sure it was a jury of peers.
This created a feeling that the law was not on the side of the mountain people. justice would only be delivered by means of going outside the law, and Major Redmond was leading the charge. Appalachia, again, I'm going to get into a little history here, and this is where I get a little fired up. So Appalachia has a history of being victimized by outsiders.
Her damn hands is going all over the place, y'all.
The government is always connected with it. So first, you had timber businesses who came in, and then you had the mineral businesses, right? And if you're a true native of the mountains, then you know that the outlander is someone who is not welcome. Many of us still feel this way today. I know I sure do at times.
Can I do it? I got to do it. Outlander!
Outlander! It's this idea of the people who come here to help us, and I'm using my little finger quotes, as if we need saving from ourselves.
Right. If it wasn't for them, thank God that, we're lucky enough, or this area is lucky enough for them to come in and show us what needs to be done, because we're just, toothless hillbillies.
We're so ignorant. Like, we haven't survived here for hundreds of years without your input.
Oh, golly.
But what would we do without you?
Golly.
It's still the same idea. We're a tourist economy here. We are a tourism-driven economy, and we get a lot of folks who come here, and then they say things like, well, what would you do without us? And I'm thinking, well, I don't know. My family's been here for 200-plus years, and not a nary one of us have worked in the tourism industry, so somehow we've survived.
Well, let's see. We'd have solid manufacturing jobs with good benefits. If our county leaders sought those out and gave the right tax incentives to bring those businesses in that go to every other fucking area around us. Thank God you're here.
I know.
Thank God. So I can have some shitty retail job where no benefits to be your serf. Please, now up in the ivory tower, may my children have another drink.
I'll have you know my family vacationed here, and we had a $60 tab, and we left you $2. You should be grateful.
Thank you. I see that your tag says you're from Florida.
Anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox.
I love Florida.
But it has bred this skepticism that there are these forces beyond our control that come in, and usually it has some sort of government sanction behind it.
Well, it does. And, you get things like the local counties' median incomes inflated as a fake number because of second homers. And this is nothing against anybody, but these are things that happen. And it affects, it knocks you out of state grants and things like that. And it just really is not a good, it's just an untenable future.
Well, if you would like to know more about things like, government overreach in the area.
Well, don't you tell them.
Look into the history of the Cataloochee Valley, which, spreads from Haywood County, North Carolina, where we are, into Tennessee.
Yup.
You had a huge timber boom there, in the early part of the 20th century. And then the government decides they want to make that preserved federal land, which is fine. But you've already had these people come in and cut down all the timber, and then it's like after they've, essentially raped the land.
All the old growth forest is gone.
Then we're going to tell all these people who've lived here, that have property here, that have their families here, that have been here for like 100 years, you need to leave. And we're going to pay you pennies on the dollar for your land.
Eminent domain bullshit.
So that's a good example. And a lot of people have some feelings about the Cataloochee Valley. So that's one example of the government coming in and fucking things up for mountain folks.
Well, it's no different than someone coming right now, knocking on my door and telling me that they know what's best for me, or their plans are the best way forward for my family. Nobody's going to go for that shit. You're going to get the hell out of here, right? Oh my gosh, I'm getting.
So.
Hey, and I will say, if you want to hear us carry on about local governments and small town affairs, check out the Lunacy Commission.
Okay, thanks for that plug.
Yeah.
Still, Lewis Redmond felt pressure in his stomping grounds around South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. He was just feeling it from all sides. So in the spring of 1879, he moved back to Maple Springs on the Little Tennessee River, which is several miles west of the little village called Charleston, North Carolina, which changed its name about a decade later to Bryson City.
Oh, okay.
Now, during this time, he sent out wedding announcements that he planned to marry Adelaide. He's a wanted man, but he's like, we're getting hitched.
Yeah, show up at this time, and you can either arrest me or wish me the best Wish us best wishes. I can't even say it right.
The two were wed, and then they disappeared off the map for a little bit. He and Adelaide had settled into an area that is now kind of the lower Fontana Lake area, which is another instance of the government's interference. So the TVA built a lake, causing many people to lose their homes and businesses. They basically moved everybody out and built a lake.
Well, yeah, it's like we don't care if you're here or not. And it doesn't matter if you want to leave. This is going to happen. It's going to be flooded. And now you have still have communities disconnected.
Well, if you'd like to learn more about that, I suggest you Google Road to Nowhere Bryson City.
That's a very good example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of broken government promises. So go check that out. With Redmond's arrival, illegal moonshine traffic escalated, kind of like COVID in Swain County, almost overnight.
They wasn't wearing a mask? They weren't stopping the spread?
Well, they had one bottle of whiskey, and the next day there was 75 bottles of whiskey.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Concerned citizens filed complaints in Washington, D.C. 3 raids were made on his hideout, which consisted of a cabin set against a cliff. He had a view of the only approach, and he had a canoe at a landing on the river below.
Oh, so he's ready to be out.
He is geared up. In 1879, having been forewarned, he headed downstream 20 minutes before his would-be abductors arrived. The second raid in 1881 found him going out a small escape hole in the rear of his house as officers came in the front door. No doubt he once again used the canoe to escape downriver.
I got a small escape hole in my rear. Yeah, dad jokes. Sorry, I couldn't miss that one.
During the third raid, which was later that year of 1881, Redmond came out with a gun. Realizing he was surrounded, he attempted to run. One account read, within a few steps, he fell with 6 bullets in him.
So they finally caught him where they could shoot him up. That's what they've been trying to do all this time.
The New York Times prematurely reported his death, but Redmond had a tough constitution that fully complemented his rabble-rouser ways. Some reports said he was hit 50 times, 20 times, 13 times, but 6 seems to be the likely number.
Well, 6 bullets is a lot.
He survived and went on to live another 25 years.
No shit.
When he was reported to have died, it was on the front page of the New York Times. But get this, when Billy the Kid died, he was on the 8th page a few months later.
Oh, wow.
So at one point, Lewis Redmond was bigger than Jesse James, bigger than Billy the Kid.
Well, it sounds like his story and his reputation definitely here on the East Coast, I think might be the difference there, was definitely well known all the way up through New York City.
Well, we'll get into maybe why he wasn't. He's not a household name like Jesse James or Billy the Kid. We'll get into that in a minute. After the arrest, he was taken to Bryson City, where his wife, during a visit, managed to slip him a pistol concealed under a pillow. The officers
they let her
found
bring a
out
pillow?
about it.
A pistol pillow?
Well, the officers found out about it and confronted Redmond with the advice that if he moved, he would be killed, and this was the exact kind of language he understood.
Well, yeah.
After surrendering the pistol, he was moved to Asheville and then on to Greenville, South Carolina for trial.
Okay.
He was sentenced to 10 years in prison to be served at Auburn Prison in New York and given hefty fines, which I can't remember the exact monetary value, but it was like in the thousands.
Oh, thousands back then?
Yeah, like $2,500 or $3,000.
Oh, well, that's a lot.
Right. Senator Wade Hampton of South Carolina, the governor of South Carolina, along with other groups like the Women's Temperance Movement, were pushing for Redmond to be pardoned.
Really?
Redmond spent almost 3 years in prisons in both New York and South Carolina until being granted a pardon by President Chester A. Arthur in 1884.
Wow, that's interesting.
When he was released, many people came out to the train stations along the way, including politicians and just regular folk, to greet him. They wanted to shake his hand and congratulate him.
Well, sounds like he was a bit of a legend.
He really was. A government distillery in Walhalla, South Carolina, contacted Redmond after he was released and asked him to come be the overseer of their liquor.
Valhalla?
Walhalla.
I want to go there.
Some people call it Valhalla, but it's like Walhalla, South Carolina.
That's where the Vikings go.
Lewis Redmond made thousands of dollars for himself and much more for the state of South Carolina.
Oh, well,
He died in his 50s near Seneca, South Carolina on April 6, 1906, leaving behind a wife, 2 sons, and 7 daughters who had inscribed on his tombstone, "He was the sunshine of our home."
Well, man, why have I not heard of this guy? Can you tell me why?
Redmond became at one point the most wanted outlaw in America, according to newspapers. Dime novels were written about him. They had tales that he had attended Princeton University, he had lived in Europe, made him out to be this very suave, debonair, continental kind of man. Tales that were so outrageous and mostly fictional. I mean, they just, we're talking about him being this dashing, handsome outlaw. Now, if Lewis Redmond had died that day in Bryson City, he would be bigger than Jesse James or Billy the Kid. But because he didn't die, he was forgotten.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. If he was gunned down or in some big hail of bullets.
Like Bon Jovi, if he died in like a blaze of glory.
Yeah, a blaze of glory.
Then he would be like the man. But see, most people aren't going to know about Lewis Redmond because he went on to just live his life.
They did say he on a still horse he rode.
Yeah.
Sorry. I tried to bring the Bon Jovi on into it.
Into the mid-20th century, the illegal moonshiners developed new tactics to get their products to clients. Faster, more savvy automobiles graced those back roads of the mountains. Bootleggers customized their vehicles with bigger, faster engines, stronger axles, leaf springs, so that they could take a heavy load of moonshine driving down a, mountain road. Hence, we got the birth of NASCAR.
Oh, thank goodness.
Which we'll get into a little bit about bootlegging and NASCAR here in just a second. So I found this pretty interesting. In Jackson County, North Carolina, Redmond supposedly lived up Fisher Creek in Silva. We just moved from Jackson County last year. Lewis Redmond, the outlaw, had a spot by the creek making moonshine in this area. His sister Maddie had married a man from that area, so he lived there, they think, for about 3 years.
Really?
But there's really not a whole lot of information about his time living in Jackson County because he was so off the grid with it.
Oh, wow. So he's kind of hiding out there, huh?
The 1958 crime drama thriller called Thunder Road that starred Robert Mitchum was a film that became a cult classic that perpetuated the outlaw moonshiner image.
Oh, my God. That was filmed in this area.
Was it?
Down there on the French Broad, do you know that straightaway from Mills River, by the river? If you don't know who I'm talking about. If you come from Mills, like the airport, and you turn and come back up, like by the Arboretum.
Okay.
By the river there.
Yeah.
There's a straightaway. In one part of that road, a long straight part, that's what a straightaway is. And yeah, some famous scenes out of that Thunder Road were filmed there.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh my God, I'm like a moviepedia.
This is like just bringing it all home.
Oh my God,
this is our home, Dylan.
Dude, it's all talking about us.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you my resources for today, and then we'll get into talking a little bit about NASCAR and bootlegging, because I think it's pretty fascinating. So the resources I used for this story is a book by Bruce Stewart called King of the Moonshiners, and a film called The Outlaw Lewis Redmond by Sucker Punch Pictures, which is mostly an oral history. It's got a lot of mountain storytellers, like the wonderfully talented Gary Carden, who's also from Silva. And Gary wrote a play called The Prince of Dark Corners, which is about the life of Lewis Redmond.
Oh, wow.
Let's get into a little bit here about NASCAR and bootlegging. Junior Johnson, who is a famous NASCAR driver, actually got his start running cases of hooch.
Yeah, they were known as moon runners.
Yeah, so I guess there were NASCAR victory or circuits starting back in 1955. It was like stock car racing, kind of got started. And it all began in the mountains of North Carolina, where Junior Johnson got his start running moonshine for his family's business. His family had been making whiskey since the Whiskey Rebellion days. And so he would start running liquor for his dad. In 1935, the family farm was raided and Junior Johnson's dad was arrested. This was 1935. They confiscated more than 7,000 gallons of whiskey. It was considered one of the largest inland seizures of illegal alcohol.
Yeah, what's crazy is they would soup these cars up, and they knew that they were going to run into law or revenuers, and they were just counting on having a faster, better, stronger car and being able to drive better.
Junior Johnson told the St. Louis Dispatch in 1990 that moonshining was part of my growing up, but it was also part of my training in auto racing. Being in that business, you had to have a very fast car and you had to be able to outrun the revenuers or highway patrol or sheriff or whoever tried to pursue you and tried to apprehend you.
That's crazy. That's a crazy story.
Yeah. So these drivers were transporting moonshine from rural areas and illegally importing booze from Canada. They had to make resourceful changes to their automobiles. So they began souping up those engines because you got to think about it. Here in the mountains, there's all these like winding back roads, hairpin turns.
Well, you got to think of the state of cars back then. They were pretty simple, you know. They were in their simple form. So, yeah, if you got a big load of something in this car, heavy load, and you got someone trying to chase you down, if you juiced and they could even run their cars off moonshine.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, what I think is pretty interesting is I have a lot of history of moonshining in my family.
Oh, my God. Can we get some?
My grandfather's from Swain County.
This is making me want to
where
jug.
Lewis Redmond lived, right? My grandfather was from Swain County, and his daddy was known, I guess, to sell some moonshine. They had like a little store, and he would sell it. And I was told a funny story about one of the first dates that my grandpa took my grandma, she was pretty square, you know, kind of didn't grow up around that sort of thing. He was taking her on a date, and they were in an old truck, and they were going up some kind of incline, like up a road, mountainous road, and some stuff started like sliding out of the back of his truck.
Oh, shit.
That he had strapped in and busted. And so he gets out and he's freaking out like, oh, my daddy's going to kill me. And she's like, what is it? And he's like, well, I was going to drop this liquor off on her way to wherever they were going.
Yeah.
And so my grandma was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is our second date.
You can't waste gas, girl.
I don't know you, and you're trying to, like, run some illegal moonshine somewhere. And he was like, yeah. So that was, like, their second date.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So I always thought that was kind of a funny story.
Yeah, I think it's funny even to this day. You know, you have legal distilleries and, you know, spirits that are done the legal way.
And that shit's not very good. I'm
sorry.
Well,
I'm going to say.
Can I just say that?
A lot of people,
stuff you buy
if you're a
is
tourist
not
and you
good.
come to this area, holler at me. Holla. I'll get you some real moonshine. Because that shit is not real moonshine.
Well, don't tell them that, Dylan.
Why not? I can hook it up.
Well, if you're
I know some people.
If you're a connoisseur of the moonshine.
If you want some real corn liquor, we'll meet out behind the bar, not no damn distillery.
Well, I'm just saying, the stuff that you can buy nowadays, the old smoky moonshine and all that big marketed stuff.
It's not moonshine.
It's not very good.
It's not moonshine.
Compared to what you get from some dude who looks like he just stepped out of a Deliverance movie.
I tell you, one time from this old man, he got me a couple jugs, okay? And the person he was getting it from, he called an old man. So who knows, that man must have been pushing 90. And I'm going to tell you what, it was not, you better take a couple of nips and put that shit away. That's where people mess up with the moonshine.
It'll burn the hair off your tongue.
You can't have but a couple of nips. You better not be putting no bubbles in the bottom of that jug.
No, and see, I guess it's because of my family heritage. I can down some moonshine,
well,
it's very badly for me.
You can, but you shouldn't.
I'm going to say the last time I had a really seriously negative experience with moonshine was a few years ago. My cousin got married. And they had a redneck wedding, you know, because we're up here, and actually the redneck wedding was over in Bryson City. Ah, hell. So we're having like this redneck wedding, and my cousin's friend brought over this, you know, couple jars. He brought over this moonshine. He's like, you should have your little nip of this.
Weren't you supposed to be taking the pictures?
Oh, well, that's why some of them are blurry.
Yeah, well, yeah, I already knew you then.
Well, I guzzled down some shine, and then the next thing I know, like, I don't know much of anything, but at some point I got in a hot tub, which is a really bad idea after you've been drinking the moonshine, to get in like 104-degree water, right?
No, don't do that. Not
a good moment. And then I was hungover for like 3 days after.
You drank it too much too fast.
Yeah, so the guy is all like, here, have some, and then he comes back and he's like, what the hell happened to my jar? And I was like, oops.
Oh my God.
It's too smooth, sir. It's too good.
Get some of that clear peach. made from that peach mash.
Yeah, this was not even flavored.
Oh my
This was just
God.
like plain, unflavored shine, but it was so smooth that you just drink it. You couldn't even tell it was like drinking water.
Or get some of that char with that nice brown color. Run across that charcoal. Oh my God. Oh man, I'm going to get a jug.
I had some mango moonshine that was pretty tasty.
I'm going to get a legal jug tomorrow that's probably taxed by the federal government.
Sounds great.
Oh, not.
Yeah, so come to the mountains on vacation, tip your server more than $2, and find yourself some good, old-fashioned, made right in a local still moonshine.
Well, I'm going to tell y'all if you come
won't be sorry.
She tells me to quit saying this, but if y'all come anywhere near our house, holla at Mountain Murders. I know somebody.
Well, join us on Patreon for exclusive bonus content. We drop episodes on Patreon all the time.
Oh, yes, we do, and we love our patrons.
Hit subscribe on our podcast. You can rate and review us. 5 stars makes Dylan so happy, and he does his pump up the jam dance.
Oh, I do. I will do another one, and I've been seeing them 5 stars come in, and we love you guys. Just rate and review us on any podcast player you use.
You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and tell a friend about Mountain Murders.
And if you want to do the old school email, you can drop us a line at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
Your feedback is appreciated, unless it's negative, and then we're probably going to talk shit about you.
No, but we'll read them either way.
Yeah, thanks.